Hello and welcome to the Rangers Review pre-batch build-up from Bilbao versus Rangers. I'm Jonny McFarlane and Joshua Barrie is live from Spain. Josh, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. A long day waiting for this game. We're obviously an hour ahead here, so it is just about 8 o'clock. But been about the city today. It's a great venue, the stadium too, and the anticipation. Certainly from the home fans, I can't remember really being at an away game in Europe and seeing a city kind of almost shut down like it has. A lot of people, I think, from the Basque region have been coming in for tonight's game, and then also the Easter weekend. There's been a bank holiday, so it's just been an absolute sea of red and white right throughout Bilbao today, and really looking forward to just a seismic game for both clubs and seeing what Rangers can do against a difficult opponent and a testing venue. But you never know.
And is there any sense, Josh, of the pressure that Bilbao are under? They've not won this trophy in their history. They're going up against a team where they're expected to win. It's on their own patch, and the final is on their own patch. Is there a sense that there's a bit of tension or stress around that?
Yeah, I think there is. There's so much. You can kind of feel the emotion in the city today, and it's not just like it's not just fans of one age. It's kind of families, old and young, are here right throughout the city. And as you say, because they haven't won this tournament, they obviously ended their long wait for a major trophy last season. I think it was a 40-year wait. But the fact that it's here at their own ground, and the fact there probably are favourites, that Atletico look at this tournament and think that there's no one that they shouldn't probably beat on a good day, especially because of Man United's season and how they've played. So there's a sense of this being a bit of a free hit for Rangers, but I think you can see in the team, again, as Barrie Ferguson alluded to yesterday, this is a Rangers lineup that I think will try and frustrate the home crowd first and just not concede the first goal early. And then maybe the occasion can play into the hands, because if the home crowd get up for it here and if they are encouraged early on, it could make it all the more difficult for Rangers. So I think they're going to try and turn that as much as possible with their approach, as Barrie Ferguson alluded to in his press conference yesterday.
Indeed, we talked about this on our show last night about what we thought Barrie would do. And we were pretty much vindicated, Josh, with the one exception of Yanis Hadji. We both thought that Connor Barron would start, but you know what, Josh? I don't mind it. I think Yanis can be trusted to go out there and put on a defensive showing, as he undoubtedly did in that first leg. My only slight concern is Ridvan at right back. I think that's got potential to be problematic depending on who plays out there. Does Inaki Williams make it? We know that the Williams brothers shift around anyway, so he's going to be up against high quality no matter what. What do you make of that team?
Yeah, I'm just actually, I'm forgetting, I'm not checked who's made the athletic team, so I will do that as we speak. But you made a good point just before we came on air, and I hadn't really thought about this in the build-up to the game. Oh, no, Inaki Williams is not. Is he in the squad? He's on the bench. He is on the bench, but he does not start. So it is Berenguer, Sanset, and Williams joining Sinadi in the front four. So probably will be Nico Williams on the right-hand side, Berenguer on the left-hand side, Sanset just off of Sinadi in that number 10 role. But you made a good point, as I was saying before we came on. Hadji did, and we spoke about this last week, he did a lot of really good defensive work on that left-hand side. In the first leg, even when Rangers went down to 10 men, there was, I think, a good number of times where the forward runs that were made, it was often like he was making covering runs, Hadji, so it maybe wasn't directly duels he was winning or headers he was winning, but it was just a hard yard to make up the distances and keep Rangers compact when they had a man less. That I think he did do well in hindsight, so perhaps that's not too much of a surprise. I just thought you might see Diamande back in that left-sided slot. However, I do think he's better on the right side when he can kind of chop back in on it. So maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. Aside from that, probably not too much of a surprise that Ferguson opts for experience in the back three rather than going for, Tavernier right wing back and then Clinton and Ciala in the left centre back slot. Ridvan, we saw in the first leg that he can be an effective player at this level, but he's consistency's kind of been his issue, and I realise you could say that about a large majority of the Rangers team. But probably in hindsight, shouldn't be surprised that Hadji gets the nod in the middle. We'll need a similarly astute performance off the ball, you'd imagine, especially in that first half, as Rangers try to keep it level. You'd imagine heading into this as late into the game as possible.
Yeah, James Skeen, one of our highly valued YouTube members, says Hadji has the experience to do a job. We both, I think, agree with that. Neil Motion comes in and says, hi guys, Hamza should have started ahead of Dessers. Derek nearly got the 11 aside of that bang on this morning when he was on with Josh. Yeah, that's the one that I think we both disagree with. Josh, I can say that based on your comments last night. I would have gone Egaman. You would have gone Egaman. But the thinking is that Dessers is the one guy that Rangers have in the squad that stretches that defence.
Probably, yeah. I mean, Barry Ferguson's response to the kind of Egaman Dessers question conundrum yesterday could have been taken in two ways. Real mind games trying to make out as if he was going to start Cyril Dessers, or just his honest opinion. And I think, and as evidenced by this lineup, you've got his honest opinion. He clearly trusts Dessers more than Egaman to, as you say, stretch the game, probably to lead the press, probably to work hard defensively too. I think Egaman does, and like you, I probably would have started him. The reason I probably would have started him is not so much that I wouldn't be surprised if Dessers does go and score tonight or do something, but I think the difference between a good performance and a bad performance is quite large, if that makes sense. Whereas with Egaman, I think you could be more guaranteed that you're going to get a 6 or a 7 out of 10, even if you don't get a match-winning performance. But he has done it pretty consistently in Europe. He scored away at Olympiacos, Malmo. Think back to that goal against Manchester United, Fenerbahce. So he does have a good record in this type of game this season.
Through his whole career, Josh, you know, he had that season at Feyenoord when he was the top scorer in the Conference League. He's always looked like a different player in Europe for whatever reason. Yeah. And I think the inconsistency that dogs his game domestically has been less obvious in European competition. There must be something about the theatre, the style of football that suits his game.
And he will, and he'll keep running. And Athletic are gonna. They actually left space, I thought, last week, despite the fact they had a man advantage. So you'd imagine that might be a bit more pronounced tonight, given the fact that they're at home and they'll want to score early, and the incentive will be on them to take the game to Rangers. I just still look at that team a bit, Jonny, and I think, is there enough unpredictability? And that does give you that. However, if Czerny and Dessers have a bit more space, we saw what they can do in Fenerbahce against another. Fenerbahce aren't as strong as Athletic club, but they're still a strong team with a lot of strong individuals. So I sense that Rangers might need a similar level of efficiency from their front two tonight if they are to get something from here. And you'd imagine it will, as we've been accustomed to seeing, it will be that kind of 5-3-2 with the ball, with Hadji a little bit higher than Diamande, and then back to more of a 5-4-1 off the ball with Czerny tracking back a bit and trying to support the players around him on the right.
Josh, I'm playing devil's advocate here because I do think that is the shape. But there isn't an opportunity for Barrie to throw a hand grenade in here, is there? There isn't an opportunity that Jeffrey's playing on the left wing, Czerny's playing on the right, and it's a 4-3-3.
I think very unlikely. It would surprise a lot of people. It would surprise me. I just think the reason he'll go with a back five is because, as we discussed yesterday, if he's defending in a low block, which you suspect he will, he'll want to not give Athletic a kind of overload in the last line as they attack high and wide with the wingers. But you've got a bit of, as you say, a bit of flexibility within that team. If you go back to the away from home, when he first introduced this back five, we didn't think it would be a back five pre-match. We were kind of debating if it would be a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. And obviously that was a bit of a surprise, maybe to Mourinho that night too, certainly from the off. So it could be, I would be surprised just because of what Ferguson said in terms of how Rangers are going to approach this game. And the bench, if I read the bench out quickly for people just so they have an idea of that too, it's Butland, Maguire, Nsiala, Hutton, McCallion, Rice, Barron, Curtis, Danilo, Egaman, Barami and McCausland. So in terms of real game changers, you're only looking at Egaman and Danilo. Outside of that, Rice, could come on in the middle of the pitch, and Nsiala is your only true defensive cover. Barami and McCausland probably slightly lower down the list. So the Rangers have Danilo or Egaman to turn to should they should they need them, you suspect it would be a man who comes on. But that's the starting 11 tasked with what's going to be a long 90 minutes and potentially more. Yeah,
and I think that it's very important to remember how big a game this truly is. The sort of paucity of quality in the domestic season has kind of made this whole run feel a little bit different to Seville. Yeah. And again, we've touched on that before, where there was a real sense of excitement because there was a sort of domestic juggernaut slightly derailed towards the end with that defeat at Ibrox against Celtic in April. But Rangers bounced back from that one in the semi-final, winning it against RB Leipzig. I think this one's a different one, but it's important to remember, I'm 43 years old, Josh, and this is only the fourth quarter-final that I've seen in my lifetime, Rangers performing. You know, and the first one against Steaua Bucharest, I was too young to remember that, so I've only ever seen that on video. People might chime in and say, well, 1990, the early 90s, I think 92, 93, that when Rangers had that incredible run in the Champions League, the first ever Champions League, you know, that was effectively a quarter-final. That's the last 16 quarter-final and semi-final in that. But in terms of just quarter-final ties, you've seen two. You've been covering Rangers for 4 years and you've seen two. And it's easy to kind of get caught up in the kind of, oh, well, this is just what happens. It might be 20 years before you see another one. If you see another one at all, it's you've got to put it into context of how European football's going and how diminished the smaller leagues like Scotland are an opportunity for this kind of stage. So I think the Rangers players and the Rangers management, both Philip Clement and Barrie Ferguson, deserve a great amount of credit for getting the club to this point. And if they can get past this obstacle, I think the sky's the limit. I don't have any fears about Manchester United. In fact, I would have a sneaky confidence about that one, Josh, in the semi-final. I don't know if that's on paper right, but just having watched quite a lot of Man United, they're a vulnerable side. Now, Leon could get through, and that would probably be a little bit more difficult. But yeah, it's important to remember that even though the season has been full of ups and downs and more downs than ups, this is really something tonight. This is really something. The entire nation will be watching. This is a kind of everyone stops and gets on the TV or gets on the radio or whatever the method of watching the game. Let's not go into any others lest we upset someone. But this is where it's at.
Yeah, it's occasion, isn't it? And it feels ridiculous to be talking about. This is a Rangers team who have scored one goal at home. I think, someone correct me if I'm wrong, one goal at home since the 2nd of February, haven't won at home since the 2nd of February, haven't won at home in their last 6 attempts, and have put in some of the worst, least controlled, most inconsistent domestic performances that I can remember watching them over a number of years in the top division, and I'm sure a lot of people will be the same. And we keep going back to the fact that this European run is a little bit more Manchester than Seville. And I know Rangers got the bye in the round of 32 and got round to the round of 16, but you've got to remember there was 8 games in the qualification stage. Rangers played 4 of the top 8. That included going away to Old Trafford and Olympiacos, playing Tottenham at home and playing Nice away. And Athletic are probably the best team in the competition, maybe alongside Lazio, but I think the majority of people would say that Athletic are the strongest team. So if they were to get through tonight, then I think it would almost top any achievement of the last number of years in Europe. You could argue about Leipzig and the individual quality, the fact that if they were to do it here, but we'll save that conversation for after the game, because there's such a long way to go to do that, and it's going to be very difficult to do that over 90 or 120 minutes or penalties. But you're right. They have a belief that is evident in this competition that isn't evident in a lot of the other games they play in. And that does matter, because we see when they have been at Ibrox recently, the impact that emotion and confidence can have on how they approach games of football. Throughout the course of the season, they've only lost once away from home in the Europa League, has been the game that has suited them best. And it's the biggest occasion for them tonight to go and show it. Absolutely big pressure to do it. But there's probably more pressure on Athletic Bilbao, which might just suit them.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just take some comments before we wrap this up, Joshua. Neil McLean saying, we'll miss Sterling's recovery pace. I fear that that's a very prescient comment. To me, Sterling gives you that kind of cheat code thing that Calvin Bassey gave Rangers in the Seville run. Not only does he have that power, he has that pace, and that's going to be missed. It's a big game for James Tavernier out there. Another commenter, Dell, saying the only player I don't trust is Jeff Day. Well, huge game for him, Josh. He is going to be under the cosh. We know that. And you've always been a big backer of this man. You've always said there's a player there. There's more than a player there. So how are you feeling about that one?
I think they're definitely Jeff Day, and it's the same as Egerman and others. They epitomise the fact that Rangers get these promising young players, and suddenly they play a couple of good games, and then the subtly the expectation is, can you be the leader now? Can you be the one who sorts this team out? Can you perform every single week? So you need to remember the context of. I think this season at Rangers is so difficult for young players who. I don't know if you saw the languages video that Rangers put out with one of their player liaison officers, Max Ashmore and Oscar Cortez, Hamza Gaman and Jeff Day. Just, these guys are, I think I'm young and I'm 25. These guys are like 3 or 4 years younger than me. They have to move to a complete different continent and then get to grips with the nature of a club like Rangers. But in a well-functioning club, Jonny, I think you have someone like Jeff Day comes in, he plays 25 games, makes 20 starts. And people want to see, our left wanting more, as opposed to has to assume that left back slot, playing every single game, playing a team that isn't functioning, play with loads of different people, different managers, different shapes, different systems, different tactics, and in an environment where you need the experienced players to lead you and take you out of difficult situations. That's just not been the core of the squad that Rangers have had for a number of years. So all that to say, the interest in him that was made public a number of months ago is evidence enough, I think, of the potential a player like Chefty has. Has he made bad mistakes leading to goals? Yes, absolutely. But he is not alone in making individual errors in that team or any other team that Rangers have put out this season. So, but I agree with you. It's a big game from tonight. I thought he did well off the bench. Generally, I think the moments he switched off have been more in the Scottish Premiership or games with a lower tempo. I thought he did pretty well off the bench last week, and I thought he did well off the bench against Aberdeen. But for him, for Nsiala, if he comes on, for Igaman, if he comes on, it's probably the biggest stage they've played on so far, and that maybe is why Barry Ferguson has went with this more experienced team, and as we're presuming, that means Ridvan Yilmaz at right wing back rather than Nsiala coming into the centre back slots and James Tavernier playing a little bit higher.
Yeah, friend of the podcast, Graham Hanna. Defeat means the season ends tonight. It really is all or nothing. Hopefully an extra motivation for the team. Again, spot on there, Josh. It's something that you hope drives them because there's certainly nothing to play for. And the domestic scene, we know that that's done and dusted. And those last 5 games are looking, with the exception of the Celtic game, rather unattractive if this is to be the last night of European action. Whereas if Rangers go on, then there'll be an extra twist. There'll be an extra element of competition, of intrigue in each of these games. So there's more than one reason for us to want Rangers to go through. That's for sure. Keep this season alive, keep the interest going, and make sure that we have so much more to look forward to. Because there's nothing better than these kind of nights. There's nothing better than an Ibrox European night, and we want more than that one last week. Right, Josh, listen, it's getting close to kickoff. I want you to get out there and taste the atmosphere. Thanks to everyone that's been in touch. It's great to talk to you all. I've got a bit of a cough and I'm about to splutter, so I'm going to get off. But just to remind you, if you want to support what we do at the Rangers Review, it's £1 for 6 months at the moment on the website. Get across to there. You can download our app for free, and it is an ad-free, brilliant way to consume your Rangers news. There isn't a better way to consume everything about the club, and you won't find better coverage of it in terms of the written form, because it's absolutely in-depth. Everything that you want to know about your club is there. £1 for an entire 6 months, $2.99 after that. So it's not even as if it's expensive once the full price kicks in. Okay, guys, thanks for your support, and we will hopefully talk to you on the back of another legendary performance from Glasgow Rangers tonight against Bilbao. It's going to be a tough one, but where there's a way, there's hope.